In 1966, England was on top of the world. They'd just won the World Cup at Wembley, and out on the roads, British factories were quietly building some of the fastest cars on the entire planet, machines that could embarrass a Ferrari for half the money. But I want to be honest with you from the very first second, because this is where most videos lie to you. In 1966, there was no agreed scientific way to measure how fast a car really was. Two different magazines could test the very same car and come back with two different numbers, and the cars handed to journalists were often quietly tuned to within an inch of their lives before anyone clicked a stopwatch. So the figures you're about to hear aren't marketing fantasy. They're taken from the people who actually strapped their timing gear into these cars and ran them on real roads, back when it happened, where the testers disagreed. I'll tell you, 8 cars. 1 year. The fastest things Britain could build at the absolute peak of its powers, counted down to the one that left every Ferrari and every American muscle car staring at its taillights. Let's start the clock. Number 8. The Sunbeam Tiger. We begin with the underdog that nobody saw coming, and the story behind it is almost funny. There was a pretty little British roadster called the Sunbeam Alpine. Sweet car, genteel, powered by a modest 4-cylinder engine that produced, frankly, not very much, and ambled to 60 miles an hour in a leisurely 13.5 seconds. Nobody's pulse ever raced. Then the same man who created the legendary American Cobra, a Texan racer named Carroll Shelby, got involved and did the thing he always did. He looked at this polite little British car and thought, what this needs is a great big American V8 stuffed under the bonnet. The result was the Sunbeam Tiger, same charming body, utterly transformed character. With a Ford V8 now sitting where the gentle 4-cylinder used to be, the Tiger reached 60 in around 8.5 seconds. To put that in context, that's a car you could buy relatively cheaply, suddenly keeping company with sports cars costing several times the price. It was the sleeper of its day, a wolf wearing the clothes of a very respectable sheep. But 8.5 seconds in this company only gets you to number 8, because the next car wears one of the most glamorous badges in the entire world, and it was about to be handed to royalty. Number 7. The Aston Martin DB6. This is the one your brain already pictures when someone says British sports car. The Aston Martin, the car of fictional spies and very real glamour. The DB6 arrived in 1965, and it carried a 4-litre straight-six engine producing around 280 horsepower, rising to 325 in the hotter Vantage tune. The official word on its performance, a top speed of about 145 miles an hour and 0 to 60 in a little over 8 seconds. Genuinely fast, effortlessly elegant, and exclusive in a way money alone couldn't quite buy. How exclusive? Consider who got one. The Queen gave a DB6 to Prince Charles for his 21st birthday, and here's the detail I love, because it's true and almost nobody knows it. He still owns that exact car today, more than 50 years later. It's been converted to run partly on fuel made from surplus English wine and cheese byproducts. A Royal Aston, half a century on, running on leftover wine. You couldn't invent it. So the DB6 had the badge, the beauty, the royal seal of approval. What it didn't quite have was the raw pace to climb any higher on this list. Because the next car came from a tiny company you've probably never heard of, and it beat the Aston with a turtle on its bonnet. Number 6. The Gordon-Keeble. Here's where this video earns its keep, because if you know this car already, you know your stuff. The Gordon-Keeble is one of the great forgotten British cars. A beautiful Grand Tourer, its body styled in Italy by a young designer named Giorgetto Giugiaro, a man who would go on to become perhaps the most important car designer of the entire 20th century. Under that elegant Italian skin sat a thoroughly clever British chassis and a big, muscular American Corvette V8, producing nearly 300 horsepower. And it was quick. When Autocar timed one, it reached 60 in 7.7 seconds and ran on to a top speed of 142 miles an hour, which, at the time, put it narrowly ahead of the contemporary Aston Martin DB4, a car costing considerably more. Now here's the bizarre touch. The company chose, as its emblem, a tortoise. A tortoise, on the nose of one of the fastest cars in Britain. It was a private joke about how a slow-seeming little firm had built something blisteringly fast, But the joke turned cruel because the company itself moved too slowly to survive. Just 100 were ever built before it collapsed. A genuine giant killer, gone almost before anyone noticed. That's 2 American-engined British cars in a row. The next one keeps the formula, but does it so well it cracks the top 5. Number 5, the Jensen Interceptor. In 1966, a company from West Bromwich launched a car that looked unmistakably Italian, sounded unmistakably American, and was built proudly in England. The Jensen Interceptor. The recipe was simple and brilliant. Take a gorgeous fastback body, styled by Italian coach builders, build it on a strong British chassis, and drop in a massive Chrysler V8, well over 6 litres of effortless American muscle. The result was a car that could carry 4 people in real comfort and still chase down purpose-built sports cars. When Autocar tested it, they recorded 0 to 60 in around 7.3 seconds, even fitted with an automatic gearbox, and they noted something telling. The Jensen's acceleration was right there alongside the Aston Martin DB6, the Jaguar E-Type, and the Porsche 911 of the day. It actually beat the Aston. A comfortable, civilized 4-seat Grand Tourer trading blows with the most famous sports cars on Earth. So now we've reached the sharp end, the top 4, and it opens with the most beautiful car on this entire list, possibly the most beautiful car ever made. Number 4, the Jaguar E-Type. When this car was revealed, Enzo Ferrari himself, the founder of Ferrari, a man not given to praising rivals, reportedly called it the most beautiful car ever made. Look at one and you'll struggle to argue, but the E-Type was never just a pretty shape. Underneath sat a 3.8, later 4.2-litre straight-six derived from Jaguar's Le Mans winning racing cars, and the performance was, for its moment, staggering. When Motor Magazine tested the 4.2, they recorded 0 to 60 in around 7 seconds and a top speed near 150 miles an hour. Autocar, testing their own example, got a slightly different number, about 7.6, which is exactly the kind of honest variation between testers I promised you'd see. And here's the real shock, the thing that made the E-Type a genuine revolution. It could touch 150 miles an hour and outrun cars that cost 2, 3, 4 times as much. An Aston or a Ferrari with similar pace cost a fortune. The Jaguar gave you that performance and those looks for a couple of £1,000s. It wasn't just fast. It was fast in a way that made the established aristocracy of the car world look like they were overcharging. Beauty, speed, and value in one impossible package. It's almost a crime to have the E-Type at number 4, but the top 3 are quicker still, and the next one is the surprise of the whole list because it carries 4 seats and looks like it should be parked outside a country house. Number 3, the Jensen CV8 and its astonishing FF cousin. Jensen appears twice on this list, and that alone tells you what a remarkable little company this was. Before the Italian-bodied Interceptor came the CV8, an altogether stranger-looking machine with a fiberglass body and a face only its maker could love. But forget the looks, because the numbers are extraordinary. The CV8, with its big Chrysler V8, reached 60 in 6.7 seconds. Read that again, then remember this was a heavy 4-seat luxury cruiser from the early to mid-60s. That figure was roughly as quick as a Lamborghini, and quicker than both the Aston Martin DB5 and the Jaguar E-Type of the time. A 4-seat British gentleman's express, embarrassing the supercars. And then there's the version that made history. Jensen built an experimental CV8 fitted with something almost nobody had ever put on a road car, 4-wheel drive, and an early anti-lock braking system. This was years, decades really, before such technology became normal. A British company, working quietly in West Bromwich, was building safety and traction technology the rest of the world wouldn't catch up with for a generation. Fast, yes, but also genuinely, quietly years ahead of everyone. We're down to the final 2. And from here, the numbers stop being merely fast and start becoming almost violent. Number 2. The Jaguar Mark II 3.8, the fastest saloon in the world. Here's the curveball, because the second fastest car on this list in spirit isn't a sleek 2-seat sports car at all. It's a 4-door saloon, the kind of car a bank manager drove. The Jaguar Mark II. Now, in pure straight with you about why it earns this spot. The Mark II 3.8 was, for years, simply the fastest production saloon car in the world, and nothing else could touch what it represented. Because the Mark II had two very different, very devoted fan bases. The police bought them because nothing else could catch a criminal on the open road, and the criminals bought them, specifically Britain's bank robbers, because nothing the police drove could catch them either, unless the police were also in a Mark II. For a few years in 1960s, Britain, the getaway car and the chase car were frequently the very same model. A Jaguar chasing a Jaguar through the streets. That is how fast this ordinary saloon was, fast enough to define both sides of a crime wave. Which leaves only one car, the fastest British thing on four wheels in 1966, and it isn't close, number one. The AC Cobra 427. Everything else on this list was a car. This was barely civilized. The AC Cobra began life as a gentle, pretty little British roadster called the AC Ace, and then, once again, that same Texan, Carroll Shelby, got hold of it. But where the Sunbeam Tiger at number 8 got a sensible V8, the ultimate Cobra got something close to insane. A 7-litre, 427 cubic inch American V8, producing in the region of 425 horsepower, bolted into a tiny, lightweight British body that weighed almost nothing. The result remains barely believable, 0 to 60 miles an hour in a little over 4 seconds. I want you to sit with that, because it bears repeating. That figure was recorded in the mid-1960s, and it would still embarrass a great many brand-new sports cars you can buy today. There were no electronics, no launch control, no clever computers managing the power, just a colossal engine, a feather-light body, and a driver brave enough to keep his foot down. It could reach over 160 miles an hour, and it would try to kill you the entire way there. It was, by some distance, the fastest British-built car of its era, a machine so ferocious that it makes everything else on this list, fast as they were, look almost sensible by comparison. The Cobra wasn't built to be reasonable. It was built to be the quickest, most savage thing on the road. And in 1966, it absolutely was. So there it is. 8 British cars, one extraordinary year, every figure taken from the people who actually timed them. But step back and look at what this list really shows you, because it's bigger than a set of numbers. In 1966, this small, rainy island was building cars that could out-accelerate, out-handle, and undercut the finest machines Italy, Germany, and America could produce. The Jaguar that outran cars 4 times its price. The 4-seat Jensen quicker than a Lamborghini. The forgotten Gordon-Keeble beating Aston Martins. The saloon so fast it armed both the police and the robbers. And a Cobra that still shames modern sports cars. This was the high-water mark, the moment British engineering for one golden stretch genuinely led the world. What happened to that industry afterwards is a sadder story for another day, but in 1966, on the road, nobody built them faster than Britain, and the numbers, the real ones, prove it.